understanding wrist movements and the three planes of development. What's interesting about the wrists and the ankles, okay, this is for both, is that you really want to look at what is going on with the rotation. Okay. Now, a lot of people think, I'm going to put this down a little bit. A lot of people think that the wrist don't rotate. This is what you're taught in anatomy, which is baloney. Every part of our body should be able to rotate. And yes, I get it that the radius goes around the ulna, but it's not that the ulna stays straight, and this is where you get this flexion and inflection. Well, that's just not how a hand works. When you're noticing that the rotation is not optimal, now, first of all, it is what the complications are. One of the things that you're looking at, let's say with CP, is the commitment of the wrist either goes above or below the hand, but can't transfer in and out, right? So depending, same with arthrogryposis or anything with contractures. So when you're working with it, even with the rotation, you know, part of the rotation is just that availability of going from to and fro. Now, I'm not talking about, you know, going into the reflexes just yet, but that's where you want. Even if the child is fisted or stems with it or any of the things that there, you still, and you might have to go that minute. And you can always tell when I go minute because I'm like down with it. I'm not back here working. You're going to have different, when you're having complications, a lot of it could just be that the way your touch is and you're putting too much over the system, and that's locking that up. The other thing to look at the rotation of the wrist, and this is where, I mean, and any question anybody asks me, especially when there's not a video, I could go in and write an encyclopedia. There's a difference between all hands, fingers, toes versus one thumb in, right? Fisted, you know, now we're going to change all the trajectories of where we're at. So again, what you're looking here then is going into the second plane, into the weight transfer. Can we at least stimulate through rotational touches that weight transfer that might be happening to allow that hand to start to blossom or come out, right? And that's another thing to look at. And again, when I have floppy, I still don't have, even though the thumb is not in, and this is what confuses people about having a low tone versus a high tone. Oh, my hands aren't fisted, phew. Well, no, we still don't have what I'm trying to teach you within that movement. And so what you'll see is a bit of this, almost like your fingertips are touching honey and you're just getting those circles, right? But again, when a child can't go into you, and I'm not saying to push me away to stop, but you'll really see that the lack of push-pull milestones within the wrist. The other big one is just, again, with the milestones, is it crossing midline? If someone has crawled properly, right, the wrist I can take the wrist and extend it out, or the tonus out, to cross the midline. Now, if they've never crossed midline, now I'm starting to get much shorter in that movement. And then again, if it's fisted or a low tone, then I'm not getting that, because again, crawling isn't just this, but crawling is this. And so when I'm reaching for a cup, or when I'm doing those kind of movements, you see that within the wrist, right? And all of those kind of movements that are necessary for functional movement, right? And that's what should be going on. So don't think twice about thinking about that seaweed kind of movement. And that's what a reflex is. So a reflex is a gravitational response, especially in the hand articulation. Palmar and plantar don't integrate, in a sense. They become more sophisticated because I'm constantly working with these kind of movements, let's say, and maybe you aren't, so you don't have the same, but this is a pianist, right, that they can come across and really dance on the keys versus dang, and I have a video, and I'm going to post up of kiddos at different levels playing the piano. But if you can't do this with playing the piano, you're not going to Juilliard, right? So again, if you're just here with the keys, and even though you've got really fast fingers, but you don't have that wrist rotation, you're not going into high-end professional. It doesn't matter if it's to the Harvard or the Olympics or whatever. This is the things that we're looking for in optimal movement. And so again, what are your intentions of the movement? But if the intentions are, I'm doing this 10 times versus thinking of that kind of movement, that's the difference. And really, I don't think of, okay, I did the wrist for 5 minutes, I did the wrist for 5 minutes. I was more in that kind of a mentality when I was just doing ABM, and as I've progressed and matured, I really got away from all of that in many different ways, but that was the big thing, was like my timing of the lesson totally switched out and went into a more mature way of working with the body. But those are the things that you're looking for in the hand. I don't care if Kay is working with her dad or working with her son. You're always thinking of, even though something's, let's say, not in the hand, you're always thinking as if there were, and what are the intentions of doing this. But, if I'm putting up a Christmas tree and I don't have fine motor skills like that, I can tell you right now, it doesn't take a rocket science to say there's going to be a couple of balls broken putting up that tree because of the mishandling or the clumsiness or whatever you want to do. It doesn't take much to do an evaluation and say, like, oh, Dad, it's not a good time to be driving anymore based off of hand functions, let's say. I'm going through this right now with my own father. And being able to transfer movement like that, right, with that kind of finesse. But that's also part of your touch. That's also part of what you're learning to do all that. If I don't have the fine motor skills, let's say, a vision, right, I'm also not going to have it within my hands. And that's another thing that people just don't understand. My vision better be able to cross midline for me to do it. And I can show you, I can cross my eyes right now, right? I still can get this to happen. It have the same finesse and synchronization. If I don't cross my eyes, I have a much more tempoed response and can go into other things. Yeah, I'm just playing with the hair clip, but it's still my touch, right? And that's what you're looking after to sophisticate your touch, but also being able to evaluate the person you're working on. Thanks.